and welcome to my final thoughts on the ITV Wasabi. Check out this sketch launch coming up right here. Ooh, a little cravat on the wingtip. Pump it out, and off we go. This is my first time launching from this spot. Forecast was wrong. Winds were supposed to be from the west. They were from the south. So I had to hike down the top of the mountain right there to my right and launch from the rock face. But the Wasabi makes it super easy. Very easy wing to launch. The ITV Wasabi is, to sum it up, in my opinion, it's like a mid ENB paraglider wing that also has trimmers. And you'll see here in the footage that it flies like a ENB paraglider. It does not fly like a paramotor wing that you also try to PG with. It's more of a PG wing with trimmers. And here's your proof right here. Winds were very light this day, maybe, 8 miles an hour. The trees were hardly moving at all from the wind, but still I was able to scratch here in this corner of the ridge and climb all the way above launch. Not very high, but enough. But if I was to attempt this type of flight with, for say, a paramotor wing that's advertised as also a PG wing that has a reflex profile, to be honest, I would probably have sank out immediately, and I wouldn't have been able to stay up. But there's pros and cons to everything, and I'll talk about some of that. Overall construction of the Wasabi is perfectly fine, in my opinion. It has plastic rods in the leading edge. They haven't become deformed or anything, at least on my wing. They work just fine. They hold the cells open like they're supposed to. The risers are thin. The trimmers are durable. Some of the stitching frayed on my trimmers a little bit over time, I think just from the buckle, because the teeth on the trimmer buckles is pretty sharp, but not really a safety issue. And yeah, look at the scratching here. I'm trying to find every tiny little piece of lift that I can, and just staying as close to the trees as I feel comfortable. My trimmers are all the way in here in this footage. I launched with them on the second line, out just about an inch, and then as soon as I launched, I pulled them back in for a maximum efficiency. This is a size small 24 meter ITV Wasabi, and I'm probably flying with an all-up weight of about 80 kilograms, so right in the middle of the weight range. I also paramotor with this wing, especially this is kind of my go-to wing here in Korea, just because the LZs that I'm taking off and landing from are so small, so tight. It's not a huge open field, so I don't have the room to launch a 16-meter rocket ship every time I go fly. Many times I'm parking on the side of the road, throwing a wing on the ground, and taking off in between bongo trucks that are driving by. So having a easy to launch, very forgiving paraglider like this is a huge plus. So the ITV Wasabi, like I mentioned earlier, I do paramotor with this wing a lot. I apologize, I don't have a ton of footage. I just haven't been able to fly that much recently, which is also why I have been flying the ITV Wasabi. Flying the little hot 16-meter rocket ship wings is a blast if you can keep your currency up, but if you're only flying once a month and you try to take off with a 16-meter rocket ship on a sketch takeoff, like, you're just increasing the risk of busting a prop, chopping lines, etc., etc. And I just want to go and have a good flight, once a month or so on the weekend. And the ITV Wasabi accomplishes that a lot easier than my wings that I've been flying in the past. No worries, I'll go back to the crazy flying style, but this is just not the time and the place for me to fly the way that I was flying a year or so ago. But I digress. Back to the ITV Wasabi. Yeah, I really don't have any complaints. Um, so who is this wing for, the ITV Wasabi? This is not a first wing. I think you would have trouble and frustration on launches with it. It doesn't launch as easy as an Ozone Spider, per se, or even like a Dudek Universal. I think launches a little bit easier than this wing. If you've ever tried to paramotor with a PG wing, and I'm speaking specifically on paramotoring with the ITV Wasabi. If you've ever tried to paramotor with a paragliding wing, they tend to hang back a lot. This PG wing does have trimmers though, and so I recommend letting the trimmers out at least to the first line or the second line if you try to paramotor with this wing. Then it will inflate like the typical paramotor wing does. So that's a huge plus to choose this paragliding wing over, I don't know, another PG wing that does not have trimmers. That said, this is a paragliding wing. It does not have a reflex profile. I've flown it in pretty rough conditions with my motor and on full speed bar, and just let the wing do the work, and I didn't take any collapses, surprisingly. I have been paragliding with this wing, and I have taken collapses while paragliding, so it's not as solid as a reflex wing. However, it recovers from collapse like a normal paragliding wing does. I feel very confident flying this wing. I trust that it's going to open after a collapse. I'm not fearful of a collapse while on this glider at all. So if that kind of suits your style more, this wing could be a great choice for you. This ITV Wasabi is great for launching with a paramotor and going and finding thermals, practicing staying in the thermals. I would just recommend that you choose the size ITV Wasabi where you're not overloaded and also trying to thermal, because you're just going to sink out like you would on a paramotor wing, a typical reflex paramotor wing. But if you fly this like maybe at the upper half of the PG weight range with a motor on, and you want to go hunt thermals with a wing, this is a great wing to do that, while also giving you the advantage of having the trimmers, so that if you take it on a sunset paramotor flight, you don't get left behind by all your friends on their reflex wings. This wing can go pretty fast. Like, it can cruise 35 miles an hour in no wind on a paramotor, because it lets you dump the trims, and you still can use a speed bar after the trims are dumped. Right about here in the flight, you can see the sun is starting to kind of poke through the overcast cloud layer. We have a lot of clouds here, and I'm like, yes, here comes the sun. Maybe it's gonna trigger some thermals. Still scratching. I climbed above launch for a little bit earlier, and I think in a second I do climb up above launch again, trying to tuck my arms in to fly as efficient as possible like the pros. But this was a great flight this day, and I'm getting kind of low right here. I'm kind of looking down the valley to my right, and I'm thinking about trying to pick out an LZ, and then boom, get a little bit more lift. Like, okay, here's some lift. Let me work this area over here. So much fun scratching. It's very challenging, and I flew just long enough to scratch the itch this day. Turn back towards the lift. See if I can find it again. Back to the Wasabi. If you don't really care to fly long distances, let's say you're looking for your second paramotor wing, or you're a paraglider pilot who thinks they're going to buy a paramotor in the future. Hey, you can paraglide with this wing until you get your motor, and you can still use the same wing. It's a great dual-purpose wing, and yep, now I'm committed. Looking for an LZ. I've gave up. I sink out too low. Back to the Wasabi. This is a great wing for going up high, looking for thermals, playing around the LZ, and great for paragliding and paramotoring. I'll compare it to my Dudek Universal, which I have probably 100 hours on or more. The Universal is faster, it's more stable, especially when flying fast. It's great for cross country. This wing is slower than the Universal, but it's more efficient. So with the trimmers all the way in on both of those wings, this wing is still more efficient. If you do 50-50 paragliding and paramotoring, I would say choose the Wasabi. If you mostly fly paramotor and occasionally want to try paragliding, then choose the Universal. The Universal will paraglide. It's best just for ridge soaring when you have consistent, strong lift. If you are paragliding like I am here in the video, where I'm scratching every tiny little bubble of lift, it's not a strong wind day, then the Wasabi is a better choice for that. Those are two comparable wings. Jin also makes a PG wing with trimmers. I'm trying to remember the name. Apologies, I don't remember the name of that wing. But when I was looking for a paragliding wing with trimmers, the Wasabi was the highest performance wing that I could find in this class. And I wish that manufacturers would make higher performing wings with trimmers. Dudek, Colt 2, Ozone, Delta 4, etc. I wish those gliders came with trimmers so that they were a little more user-friendly with a paramotor. I understand why they don't. They're more dangerous if you fly them with the trims out, especially in strong conditions. Somebody would do it, and the glider would collapse, and they couldn't recover it, and they'd get hurt, and I gotcha. It's a liability thing, but, almost forgot to talk about Acro. So for the guys that are looking for that second wing, they want to progress into wingovers, maybe even do an SIV and get into doing some stalls, SATs, etc. The Wasabi is great for that. It's ENB rated with the trimmers in. You can safely take it to an SIV. It will help you progress in wingovers. So yeah, watch this landing. I'm just clearing wires right here by like 5 feet. Swoop in. My spot is the road. That's where I was trying to land. And boom. Good thing I scouted this place out prior to look for wires. So I kind of knew where they were. And this was one of my bailout LZs that I picked up. But overall, highest performing PG wing that still comes with trimmers that I'm aware of. If you 50-50 motor and PG, great wing. If you mostly PG, sometimes motor, great wing. If you mostly motor, sometimes PG, there's probably better choices out there, but the Wasabi is still not a bad choice. I've really enjoyed this glider. I'm going to continue to fly it. If you have any questions about the glider, hit me up. Thanks for watching. Peace. Landed safe, so that's a plus. I stayed up longer than I thought I would. Time to pack it up and hike back over and head home.